The person who seems to be getting the most chatter and the most attention at the moment is that very doctor, Dr. Leslyn Lewis, and we're lucky to have her on the program this morning. Good morning, Dr. Lewis. Nice of you to join us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tell Newfoundlanders and Labradorians a little bit about yourself, because part of your campaign, I think, has been introducing yourself not just to Conservative voters, but to Canadians. I look at your academic pedigree. It's pretty damn impressive. You're a lawyer, a teacher, a community advocate. You've got your PhD in law, and I love the line from your website, which says, "I want to serve our country as leader of the Conservative Party of Canada because I see the opportunities that I had as a young woman being undermined even with our own party." So with that set up, give us a sense of who Leslyn Lewis is.
Yes, I think all of those things that you've highlighted are, an important part of who I am. I'm also a mother, and in achieving all of these goals, I had to balance family life also. At times when I was doing my PhD, I was studying while doing homework with my children. So that also adds a different dynamics, and it also gives me the desire to want to make sure that the opportunities that I had growing up in this country, even basic things, just the ability to speak freely, that is going to be there for my children, and it's something that I'm very determined to fight for. I'm also concerned about our economy and making sure that there's affordable living and that the Canadian dream is there for my children also.
Now, one of the things that has seemingly raised questions, and you were no stranger to these questions or any sort of questions around people's legitimacy as a candidate, is you've been tagged as a social conservative candidate. In some circumstances that is viewed as scary, in others it is viewed as, well, that person has a strong religious conviction and that faith informs the way they look at the world. How would you describe yourself, and how do you deal with that social conservative label?
Well, I've always defined myself as more as a fiscal conservative. It wasn't until I got into politics people labeled me as a social conservative, and I realized that is because I am a person of faith, and that's something that I'm entitled to be under the Charter, under Section 2, that protects me. And what I don't do is I don't impose my values in a professional setting. And so I am capable of representing all people who don't share my faith, who don't have a faith, who don't believe what I believe, but it does inform who I am. I think it makes me more compassionate. It makes me question things such as how we're treating our veterans, how we're treating our seniors, which I have a lot of issues with. I have a lot of issues with people who have laid down their life to protect us, and people who have worked their entire lives and given to this country, and the fact that we're not creating policies that protect them and that honor them in their times of need.
One of the things in your resume and in your background, you have a master's in environmental studies, environmental management. You, of course, have somebody who's well familiar to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians playing a key role in your campaign. Steve Outhouse, well regarded in our part of the world, was, of course, with Minister Lyola Hearn and worked in numerous federal departments. You have spoken about the need to repeal key pieces of the current government's legislation. All that is set up to say, where do you view Newfoundland and Labrador's oil and gas economy, and how do you view it in terms of the Canadian economy, and what needs to happen with oil and gas development in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Well, many people don't realize this, but Newfoundland and Labrador has been just as hard hit as places like Alberta, because there's many workers that would migrate to Alberta for jobs. And now that industry is shut down, there's a spillover effect on your region. And so many people don't realize that. And the oil and gas sector is a big part of our COVID recovery plan. We have even just Alberta has one of the largest accessible oil reserves, and Newfoundlanders are very dependent on the oil and gas sector also. And so we do need to develop that sector. It's a natural endowment that we've been blessed with, and I think that we should optimize it. And in the oil and gas sector, for every job that's created from that sector, there's actually 7 splinter jobs that's created across the country. So I think our path to economic recovery is developing that sector, because we can't cut back the way that Conservatives often do. We just cannot do that. People are suffering, and they have suffered enough. So we have to start looking within for our solutions.
In terms of solutions, and again, 2 last questions for you, because I know you're extremely busy, and this is the second last one. You'll know one of the knocks against the Conservative Party, and you've dealt with it throughout the campaign. It's been part of the debates that you have taken part in yourself. Finding that balance between environment, energy, and the connection to many millennial younger voters who value serious proposals on climate change. Under a Conservative government you would lead, how would you manage to strike that balance between helping Newfoundland, Alberta, and others continue to prosper while making sure we were doing something serious to address the challenges of the planet?
Absolutely. And that's where my Master's of Environmental Studies comes in, because I have practical solutions that I've actually worked through. And so I don't believe in having a carbon tax, because every G7 nation has signed on to, agreements that are going to make sure that they are good environmental stewards. But no G7 nation has a national carbon tax, because it's killing industries. And it is not really helping the environment. It is actually crippling the individuals who can least afford it and industries that can least afford it. So I have practical solutions that work on everyday activities, such as making sure that we're not dumping waste in our waterways, making sure that we have conservation policies in place. Simple things like planting trees also help our environment. So my solutions are practical, and I would work with various regions to make sure that they have plans that are responsive to their region. And one thing that I would do at a national level is make sure that the Minister of Atlantic Canadian Opportunities Agency is somebody that comes from your region, and that they have an integral part in what their environmental plan will be for that sector.
As I said, last question for you. The one question I get frequently is, as I said in the outset, who's Leslyn Lewis? And God, she's interesting. You have recently gone through the second quarter, I believe it was, of fundraising for the Conservative leadership. You raised nearly $1 million. There does legitimately seem to be some excitement about your candidacy. What do you attribute that to? Why are Conservatives, you may not win, but I think you're positioning yourself for a great leadership role in the future. I know you're out to win, but why do you think there's this excitement around your candidacy within Conservative circles?
I think there's an excitement because people believe that I can win, and people believe that I'm the voice that the party needs at this time. There are a number of Canadians who've told me that they're walking around on eggshells, and traditionally, our Conservatives have been afraid to address Conservative issues. I'm speaking boldly about what these issues are. I'm speaking boldly about change and the change that our party needs, which is sticking to our Conservative values and broadening our base and bringing in new people into our Conservative family. And the donor numbers are indicative of the fact that people believe that I can win. I'm leading in Ontario, PEI, Saskatchewan, BC, Nunavut, Northwest Territories in donations. And the only reason why I'm even behind in your region is because of COVID, because I haven't had an opportunity to get out there. But I will eventually get out there after those rules are relaxed. And you will see that I will even grow further in that region. And we have hit $1.8 million in just a few months, which tells you that my message is resonating with Canadians because they want a true blue Conservative leader, not one that's shifting and pretending to be one that is a true blue Conservative leader. And that's the position that I've put forth.
I wonder who you mean by the shifting and pretending. We'll leave that for another day, Dr. Lewis. Anyway, great to have you on. Thank you for sharing your perspective with Newfoundland and Labrador. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.